Unlike most of the world, US soccer has a closed system. MLS is the first division, and there's no way to get promoted to it, and there's no way to get relegated from it. And that's a big topic of discussion within the US soccer community. Some people are for promotion, relegation, and open pyramid, and there's a difference between promotion, relegation, and an open pyramid. We'll dive into that during the video. And then there are people that are against promotion relegation. They're for a closed system, which is what we currently have. Now listen, I am for an open pyramid with promotion and relegation. Okay, that's what I'm for. However, I like giving a voice to those who disagree with me. Unlike most of the US soccer community where people don't like to debate and they like to censor one another and just simply, there's no discourse, right? No one is discussing these topics with someone that opposes their point of view. I have no issue with that. So today I have two guests. One that is for promotion relegation in an open pyramid and one that is against it because I want to give a voice to both sides. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today we have the ultimate MLS promotion relegation debate. Now listen, I'll obviously be conducting this debate and I will put my opinion out there. I'm not going to stay silent throughout this debate, but I'm going to try to remain non-biased and play devil's advocate in multiple occasions, right? So the guest that is for promotion relegation and open pyramid is Gary Kleiben from 343. And the guest that is against promotion relegation is Eric Holstrom, a massive LAFC fan, and he actually covers the team as well. All right, now sit back, relax, drop a like in this video if you haven't already. I will not be asking during the episode, so please take the time and do it right now. Hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. And let me know in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts on promotion relegation? Do you want it implemented in US soccer? Do you not want it? Do you like the current structure? And again, I'll talk about this throughout the video. It's not MLS's duty to implement it. It's the federation. MLS, I don't blame them. MLS has to do what is best for MLS, and the current structure is better for Major League Soccer. So I don't really blame MLS, even though I'm for an open pyramid. It's the federation that has to implement it, and how they implement it, it's very complex. I'll talk about it throughout the video as well. It has to start at the state level, maybe go regional, and then go Division 3, 2, and 1. Anyhow, we'll talk about it. Drop a like in the video. Let's roll the intro and start the episode. All right, the moment everyone's been waiting for. One of the most argued, debated topics in U.S. soccer, in the U.S. soccer community, promotion and relegation. Before I explain what we mean by promotion relegation, okay, because I think people get it confused sometimes about open pyramid, closed pyramid, promotion relegation. They're not all the same thing. You can have promotion relegation in a closed system. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyhow, to argue for promotion relegation and open pyramid, we have here today Gary from 343. Gary, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
And to argue against promotion relegation and for the current structure in MLS, in Major League Soccer, and US soccer as a whole, right? Not just MLS, USL, all of them, is Eric, a big-time LAFC fan. How you doing? In a beautiful Palmeiras scarf there in the background that I see.
Hey, thank you. Yep, I'm a Porco by marriage. It's a pleasure being on the show talking to you guys.
All right, so we'll do it this way. So, guys, to make things easy for this debate, whenever someone's talking, if you want to, you can hit the mute button right there. That'll make things easier also to not get any noise because I can hear a little bit of the headphones. Before we start, because I'm going to give the mic 80 to 90% to you guys, right? I'm only going to hop in if I have some opinion I want to put out there. I'm going to explain very quickly the difference between promotion relegation in what we mean by promotion relegation and open pyramid. Okay. And I want to bring up this tweet because it's a good example of what I want to talk about here. So Alexi Lalas was talking about an intra MLS promotion relegation structure, MLS 1, MLS 2. And then Simon Evans quote tweeted by saying this debate has been going on for over 20 years. Yeah, that's the lifespan of MLS. It should be obvious why there isn't going to be pro rel between MLS and USL. Again, pro rel can only go through the federation, not the leagues. But I want to bring up this right here, right? Because he says, if you like pro rel because it creates an open pyramid and clubs can rise and fall through the tiers, then USL is actually trying to build that right now. I just want to say one thing. USL is not trying to build that, guys. Okay, just to make that clear. USL can build promotion relegation within USL. That is an intra USL promotion relegation. It still is a closed pyramid. MLS, they can do promotion relegation tomorrow within MLS. Nothing changes. It's still a closed pyramid. Okay. So there's a difference. An open pyramid, it could start at the state level, go regional, national. There's many ways to do it. The United States is a big country. So you probably have to do something within like state, go region and national, something similar to what Brazil has and had in the past as well. But I just want to make that clear. Okay. So we're not arguing for MLS to implement promotion relegation within MLS. Because if we say that, Eric might even say, sure, do it. It's like, so that's not what we're arguing. We're arguing for the federation to implement promotion relegation within the entire pyramid of US soccer, an open pyramid. So I want to start with this. I want both of you to make an opening statement, which would probably be your main reason to why you want to defend ProRel or be against it. And then we'll go from there. It doesn't have to be long. It can be short because we are going to have a lot of time to elaborate each point. So, Gary, you go first, your opening statement.
Brilliant. Yeah. I want everybody who's in the audience to kind of understand the following framing, which I believe is the correct framing of the discussion. Whenever you see pro-rel written or spoken of, promotion relegation, that needs to be substituted with the following: freedom, opportunity, and merit. That is a vastly different framing than just, oh, the losing team goes down and the winning team goes up. And, you start discussing all the sporting side of that equation, the pros, the cons, so on and so forth. No, reframe this. This is about freedom, opportunity, and having a meritocracy in the ecosystem. All the sporting related things are ancillary, are secondary, and we can discuss all those as much as you'd like as well. But I'm going to keep emphasizing this is about a fight for freedom.
Okay, Eric, your opening statement.
Yeah, I think looking at this, number one, as a sports fan here and wanting to see the league grow, what we need mostly to grow the league right now is investment, and having the system as a franchise model, which is very common. Basically, every major American sports league operates in a franchise model, but this model is the best mechanism for investors to pour money and resources in to build infrastructure, to build training facilities, to build soccer-specific stadiums, to basically create everything that will make this league continue to grow. Money is going to fuel this growth, and this structure is there to encourage more money to come in.
Okay, so now we can start the actual debate, right? I'm going to start by bringing up a recent quote of the newly appointed MLS commissioner. So I believe Don Garber is still in charge till the end of the year, and then Larry Berg will take charge next year. Personally, I've talked about this on X. I don't know how much it matters who's the commissioner. At the end of the day, the owners are in charge. It's just a different guy. But Larry Berg will be the one in charge. He was a minority owner of the LAFC, Eric's team, by the way. And he got appointed. There was a press conference where the shills were all there to ask him questions. So, Gary, do you think I'll be allowed to ask questions there? They will let me?
No chance, man. And I will not be allowed either.
No. Eric, do you think they would ever let me ask any questions there? Probably not, right?
With that handsome smile, who knows?
You know that's not getting anyone anywhere in MLS.
Yeah,
But
that's
anyhow,
true. That's true.
This is what Larry Berg had to say. When asked about his thoughts on promotion relegation, he had this to say: I can understand the appeal for the fans, but I don't think it's a great way to build a league. I don't think it's a way to get stadiums built, get training facilities built, and to have owners invest in rosters and all other things you need to do. The great thing about promotion relegation for fans is that the jeopardy is quite severe. But I think there are other ways to create jeopardy during the regular season and during the playoffs to get to the next round. That's what I want to focus on. So before I hand the mic to you guys, and the first one here, I let Gary go first on the statements, and I'll let Eric go first on this one. To me, this shows a commissioner that's completely disconnected with the sport. Okay. He seems very well connected when it comes to business, right? I can't even argue that with this guy. He understands business. He understands how to get things done in that sense. But when we're talking about promotion relegation, it's not just about the jeopardy. I think Gary kind of alluded to that already. He kind of mentioned it. I just want to make my opinion clear. I'm not going to expand upon that much more. Eric, What do you make of this quote? I'm going to remove it from the screen right now. You guys already saw it. I read it. If you want to talk with it on screen, you let me know. Same thing goes for Gary. But Eric, you take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at him, he's one of the three main LAFC investors. Quite famously, LAFC has 40 some investors, including Will Ferrell, Mia Hamm, Nomar Garcia Parra. But he is one of the main three that makes the decisions. Which, to become the commissioner, he had to sell his stake in the team. So he definitely, I think, needs to be mission driven. And if you look at him before he came in, he was a big fan of the sport and the sport in this country. And unlike a lot of the other investors, that's one of the main things that drew him into getting involved. Now, if you look at LAFC, it's hard to argue that any team has had such a strong growth since coming into the league in their 8 years. They're already a dominant powerhouse, very consistent. And so this is kind of the house that he helped build. Now, he goes into the league the same way. I think we're looking at MLS like it's a league that needs to get built. It needs to get made better. And coming in as an investor, he looked at how do we encourage other people to invest in these teams? And he looks at the franchise system we have, which is amongst all the other sports, and it's kind of built to make sure that it protects the investment. If you look at team valuations across American landscapes, whether it's MLB, NBA, NFL, they're about 10x revenue. If you look at soccer leagues or football leagues with pro relegation, they tend to be 3 to 5x revenue. And that's the valuation is basically 10 times the yearly revenue from a team. So LAFC makes 100 million, they're worth 10 billion, or 4x a lot of the European teams. Manchester United makes 1 billion, they're worth 4 billion.
Okay, Gary, you can talk about what Eric mentioned. You can talk about the quote. If you do address something that Eric mentioned directly, I'm obviously going to allow Eric to respond at some point. If you don't, then we'll just move on to the next one. Go, Gary.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to stick to 2 points, even though this could be an entire episode on its own with that one statement that the new commissioner made. The 2 points. Number one is he's the commissioner. What does that mean? He is hired as the bureaucrat, as the face for the monopoly that is MLS. So everything that is going to come out of his mouth and every action that he is going to take is for the benefit of the monopoly that is MLS. Everybody needs to understand this, okay? What is in the best interest of MLS is what's going to get executed. Not what's in the best interest of the second division USL, not in what's in the best interest of the third division USL League One, MPSL, UPSL, youth soccer, you name it. Anything outside the bubble that is MLS, he could care less about. He cares about growing the investment pile of the monopoly itself. So the commissioner is just a bureaucrat. He's going to do what the owners tell him to do. Second point is he talks about, hey, I understand how the fans, the appeal of pro rel, maybe it's exciting or whatever. Okay, great. You're all being fan focused with that comment. And I think Eric in his opening statement was kind of talking about fans, right? Or fandom and what's best for the fans. We have a whole bunch of communities and practitioners in the space who's looking out for the people who work in the soccer ecosystem and the communities that are outside the MLS bubble. Who's looking out for them? Because MLS is definitely not looking out for them. All the practitioners outside of the MLS bubble do not benefit by the current establishment because they don't have a meritocracy where they can work their way up. And somebody might point at, well, what about this guy, Gary? He used to work in USL. Now he's in MLS or something like that. Yeah, but you understand how it's a gate-kept system. A gatekeeper has to anoint you, knight you, and say, yes, we allow you to come be part of our party now. And that drives all kinds of poor incentives, Filippo. All kinds of poor incentives. Such incentives as kissing the ring, the classic hyperbolic comment that you can make. So the incentives are not sporting excellence. The incentives are do what MLS tells you to do, and maybe one day you'll be blessed by them.
I'm gonna give Eric the mic here in a second. Let me play even devil's advocate against Gary here for a second. I'm gonna use one thing that Eric said. Not saying I agree with Eric, but it's a fine counter because I want Gary to address this. What do you say about the sport needs investment? Right. And Eric even talked about it, and that's what he said as well. Obviously, as the MLS commissioner, he's looking into jacking up those asset values, selling the next franchise if they want to continue to expand. They want to know how they can make money, cash flow, everything, right? In an open pyramid, what would be the impact on it, or the negative impact, I would say? And then Eric, I'm gonna let you talk about that as well.
The negative impact of an open pyramid.
Yeah,
that context.
My question is, if the whole argument is that the closed pyramid gives them stability. So once it has stability, the owner's willing to, let me put 50 million here because I know I can't get relegated.
Mm-hmm.
In an open pyramid, maybe they're going to have to be smarter with their money. Some people might not want to risk it, whatever it is. That's the argument. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm saying that's what many argue. And since you talked about that, I just wanted to see if you have a point to that, and then I'll give it back to Eric. Yeah.
There's many points. Okay. If we can, we're going to presume here, because we can't do the counterfactual and live in the alternate universe, but we can look at other industries and we can look at what happens across the world. So if we stick to soccer and look at what happens across the world, when you have an open pyramid, it maximizes the capital investment. Okay. It maximizes things because there's the threat of relegation. You don't want to go down. So you have to spend. So that you're going to be spending a heck of a lot more. But more important than that, guys, is stop looking at MLS and the investment in the monopoly that is MLS. What about the investment in the rest of the lower tiers? Well, that gets choked out when there's a closed ecosystem. What is the incentive for a USL owner or would-be USL owner or a billionaire from outside or what is the incentive for Jeff Bezos to buy a second division club here in the United States if you're perpetually stuck in the second division? There is none. But when it's open, that capital inflows into the lower tiers. Everybody, Eric mentioned LAFC. I spoke to very high-level people at MLS, and during one meeting, an MLS executive told me, Gary, there were 5 legit bids for the LAFC franchise. 5 ultra-wealthy investor groups. Well, guess what? They picked one of the 5. Where did the other 4 go? Well, that's another 4 groups of billionaires worth of wealth that did not get infused into the American soccer ecosystem. They weren't allowed to. So that, I guess that's my response. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, Filippo, but you can say as much as you like, or Eric.
No, I don't have anything else. Now I'm going to give the mic to Eric. Eric.
Yeah, number one, I guess, regarding those other 4 billionaires, I would be curious to know if this was for a franchise in general or specifically one in Los Angeles, which is a much different market than everybody else.
Specifically LAFC.
For sure. Yeah, of course, multiple investors would want to be there versus, like Roanoke FC or something like that. It's obviously, it's a metro area of, 38 million in Southern California.
So Eric, can I ask you a question then, Eric, about this then? So those 4 owners, Eric, if there was an open pyramid, do you think they would, if they couldn't get into the top division, if it was like that, right, franchise based, do you think they would invest or make their own clubs? Because they probably have a lot of money. What are your thoughts on that specifically?
No, I don't think so, because they would have been looking at a very diluted market. If you have, LA is a city of 5 million people, and let's ignore the surrounding area. Like I said, the whole metro area is like Southern California is 38 million. So if there's 20 million people you're competing for a team, if you're going to slice that pie up into 6 pieces, you're competing for, 1/6 of that market. If it's in 1 or 2 pieces, although I'll argue, of course, as LAFC fan, that Carson isn't technically Los Angeles. You have 2 pies for a very big space, and you see this across with other franchises where you control where they are so that you don't have too many teams trying to slice that pie up in too small of pieces. And 2 of the things I wanted to get back on Gary's previous thing, he talked about a closed system, that was basically only if you're allowed in. Well, another example of a closed system is a university. Like, you get accepted to it or you don't get accepted to it. It doesn't mean that the whole premise is flawed. There are just plenty of things in life that are like this. The last thing, repeatedly call it a monopoly. Frazier versus Major League Soccer in 2025, they had a ruling by a jury that said it's not a monopoly. And so, I just wanted to make make sure, because these words always get thrown around and they're not technically accurate words. There's another league, USL. There's many other leagues in the country. There's nothing to stop anybody from making a soccer league anywhere. Now, just because they have a team somewhere doesn't mean they have a right to be in somebody else's league. And, that's with all the infrastructure they've built out to basically allow people to just come into the league is, again, that's what will discourage investment, which is the thing we need the most.
Can you just address what you meant about like being accepted in the university versus being accepted in the league?
Well, Gary, it was a bit back. He basically essentially said, you're going to be in the club if they allow you to be in the club, because it's a closed system. So it's like you're not, universities are the same way. There's a lot of different universities, but you don't go to the university and this university accepts you to go to the university. So it's not like it's a crazy concept that's unique to MLS, is all I'm trying to say with that now, like, comparison.
Okay. You have in the university system, you have optionality, right? There's so much opportunity. There's hundreds and hundreds of universities. So while you're not guaranteed to go to Princeton, nobody's asking for the right to go to Princeton. It's the opportunity to go to some institution and be accepted to some sort of institution and merit your way into it. To get accepted to Princeton, it's quite straight. It's not straightforward, but there are things that are kind of written down. You must have these sorts of test scores. You must have this sort of performance. You must have this. And if you're not accepted there, there's other institutions on the caliber of Princeton, or second tier, or third tier, or fourth tier.
Of course, like Princeton, MLS is the Ivy League of American soccer. So if you
that's one.
The Ivy League,
it's one company. It's one company. It's the analogy would be like there's Princeton, and then there are no more 4-year institutions. It's all junior colleges.
I'm gonna try to fix the analogy there. I think if it was to compare to promotion relegation like we're talking about, it would be as if there was some governing body of universities, which I'm sure we have one. I'm not too
the NCAA.
Well, that's sports. That's different. I'm talking about university as a whole. A governing body that said only these 10 schools can have engineering. No one else can open a engineering school. All of a sudden, you have 10 options, and you can only enter there. Now, is it merit based? Perhaps, right? Only those guys can get in, or people with money, whatever the criteria is. But I think it would be something more like that, restrictive.
Yeah, but the comparison was only that, the premise of you only get allowed in if they allow you to be allowed in, and that's, there's plenty of engineering schools. Even if those were the 10 best, there's still going to be others. There's still going to be community colleges, and those are all there. Now, just be, somebody who is in a community college doesn't deserve to go to one of those. It's,
I'm going to bring up a topic here that I'm actually interested in on what you got, and it's going to be something that I experience. So that'll be quite interesting. I'll tell a story, and then I want to get both of your thoughts on it. Before we go to that, the one thing I wanted to say about that is that the university thing, I think it's more like the being accepted in a university is a little bit different than what we're talking about here, because it's almost as if a governing body restricted it. I'm not for prohibiting anyone to make their own league like MLS, and if they make their own league, they make their own rules. But when you are granted the Division I sanction by the governing body of the sport in that country, right? Because US Soccer is meant to regulate, and they're in charge. It's like the U.S. government of soccer. That's what they are, right? But anyhow, let me go to my story here. I want to ask you guys this. So you all are aware of UPSL, right? I'm sure you both are, right? That would be what, the 4th division?
Yeah, I got a 4th division jersey on right now.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the
NPSL,
UPSL teams in California, right? So I know UPSL quite well here in Florida. Gary, you're obviously fully aware of UPSL. So it's like the 4th division, if I'm not mistaken. I am also in the TST tournament, which is not really it's not a league. It's like a 1-week festival. Winner takes $1 million home. So there's a lot of people investing money. UPSL, at least here in Florida. Okay. I don't know about California. I know other players. I'm going to talk about Florida. I have guys that have money paying players $100 per game. And if you have like you have like 15 players, roughly 18 players per game, that's almost $2,000. And then you have to pay the refs. So they're investing money out of passion. And the guys that are investing money, these are not billionaires. They're millionaires. They have enough money where they lose like 20, 30K in a season, and they're okay with it. Even though I think if you win UPSL, you get like 10 grand, 80 grand or something. There is a prize money if you win it nationally, right? Not the state. So I have investors, and I raised quite a bit of money for the TST as well. These are guys that want to invest in soccer in this country. One of them is even from Brazil, and he was spending like $10,000-$15,000 a month on player salaries in Brazil for nothing, zero return, just to invest and have a team competing on Foot 7. And he wants to invest here as well. These guys cannot enter MLS. We can all agree with that, right? Like they can't afford a 300 million, 400 million build a stadium. That's not for them. They're not billionaires. You have to be very, very wealthy for Major League Soccer. So, Eric, do you think the closed pyramid, and I'm going to ask the exact same question to Gary. Okay, so Gary, I'm not even going to repeat this question. Just hold on to this question, okay? Do you think the closed system, the closed pyramid, could be hurting U.S. soccer to a certain extent because we are not giving access to these investors, the smaller investors that come in at lower leagues and build local clubs? Do you think it hurts in any way, shape, or form? Because again, you could say, yes, I do think it hurts, but ultimately I prefer the big investors to come in. We need them more. You can say whatever you want, but my question is mainly that, is like, do you think it hurts?
No, I don't think it hurts. And again, the reason is because I think in this alternate universe where we have this, not nearly as much money is going to come in, and this is going to be debatable because you can't really argue a negative, but do people pay the money for LAFC and build the infrastructure? Because the thing is, if you make this investment, the next thing you need to do is protect your investment. If you're just putting a little bit in to see what happens, you're putting a little bit in to see what happens. There's not a lot of markets that can support teams. MLS is continuously trying to pick off the big ones like Sacramento. Indianapolis is another one. And then you look at the other teams like Monterey Bay FC, which is 6,000 people. Like, should we watch a Monterey Bay FC come in and play a team of 20,000? They can't make the resources. They can't fill their stadium, even charging $15 a ticket. I think even if you were to have an open pyramid, I think there's such a little landscape here that everything below it is going to be completely mismatched, and we're going to look like a German league where we basically have one or two teams that win the championship every season. And how does that grow the game?
See, this is a big problem with two very different views of looking at the world. Okay, one is centralized command and control, where one thinks that they know what the market actually is and they dictate to everybody else, this is what the market can sustain. This is how much investment should go here and should not go over there. Central planning, basically, versus an open free market, which is the most efficient thing, which has been proven time and time again globally for centuries now across all ecosystems. It determines what are the markets, what it can handle, what it cannot handle, who can and who can't do what. The whole Monterey Bay thing, or if you look at what's happening in the second division now, in the third division here in the United States, you can't say that that is exactly what would happen if the system were open. I'm kind of like with you, Filippo. If the system were open, there's a lot more willing money to come in and build the infrastructure that Eric wants to see happen in the game. I have Orange County FC right here, 5 miles away from me. Okay. Small soccer specific stadium. I don't know what it seats, 5,000 or something like this. Okay. What if they can earn their way? Okay. What if they can earn their way into MLS by winning the championship? What does that do to stimulate the community around here? What does that do to stimulate not just those investors? Because see, if the pyramid is open, that they might not be the owners anymore. Somebody else might come in. Jeff Bezos might come in and say, I'm going to buy Orange County FC and I'm going to build that mother effer up. I'm going to build the stadium up to be 15K or 20K. I'm going to get the players to ensure that I win the USL championship and go up. So the infrastructure play is there when you have a distributed, decentralized system versus a centrally planned Soviet-style socialist system.
Yeah, I think from my end, my perspective on this is, from what I've seen, there's a lot of people that want to put money. I'm not talking about put like 100, 200.
Me too, man. Hey, look, my original dream was owning my own club, my own team. But guess what? And I have the resources to do it. And I have investors. I know countless investors who have invested in me and would want to do something. We don't want to do anything because what is the point? We're going to siphon millions of dollars into a third-tier club, USL 1 club. For what? What do you gain from that? It's money down the hole.
Yeah, the whole central planning analogy, it's like that is a state-directed expenditure, and MLS is all private investors. So it's just like calling them a a monopoly, which, I just think this is very, very poor rhetoric.
Are they not centrally planned? Do they not make the rules of what can and can't be done?
They have a set of bylaws that were created at the very beginning. So yeah, they do, just like a country has a constitution. Like, they have the rules of what they do. They have their criteria. If you want to be an MLS team, there's certain market requirements you're going to have to hit that they should have to hit. Like, you have to build a certain size stadium. You have to be in an area with a certain amount of population that can sustain it, because the last thing MLS wants and what they've been good at is not going bankrupt. And we can see a long history of American soccer leagues that have gone bankrupt.
Okay,
So
they're centrally planning and dictating what can and can't be done.
I'll give you an example also of MLS. And Eric, when I talk right now, because of the earbuds, yeah, I hear a little squeak. And if you want to talk, just put it normally and I'll know. One thing to add too, like, I'll give you an example. At least here in Orlando, I see Orlando City trying to compete with the local soccer schools or after school programs or whatever, anything soccer related, rather than partner with it, right? I also see a good portion of the people that live in Orlando. I work with soccer here, right? So it's not like I'm talking because I know 10 people. I know hundreds of people, right? I have 300 kids every season. I also am involved. I know people that work here. Eddie Johnson works here, for example, in Orlando. I know also different schools, UPSL. I can tell you, I think when it comes to the soccer market in Orlando, I doubt Orlando City has even 50% of it in terms of fandom, right? I doubt it. I could be very much wrong about that, but I'm pretty convinced when it comes to that. I don't know about LA. Maybe LAFC and LA Galaxy have complete control of that. Other cities, I've visited many different cities and gone to different MLS games. Austin FC fan base, I thought they were quite different from Orlando. Seemed like a city that had embraced the team a bit more. Houston, on the other hand, didn't seem that way. So depends on where you go. My problem with that is, like, when you have something, you don't have the access to the other leagues, the other tiers, right? Division 2, Division 3, and you can't invest to build up. It becomes an unfair fight locally, right? When it comes with it. And ultimately what happens is you just destroy local soccer. Because I don't, this is what I say when people say support local soccer. MLS is not the only local soccer. That's what people need to understand, right? You're the tiny little UPSL club that maybe a 15-year-old is playing. That is local soccer. Ian Diamande, that just got sold to Real Madrid for 100 something million. He was playing here in Florida 3 years ago for the DME Academy, right? Recruited out of Africa and all that. Leslie, a left back that no one talks about. He's playing for Valencia this season. He was playing here at Monteverde at SEMA, right? Here in Florida. And I know many talented players in UPSL that don't get the same opportunity. Alex Freeman played in UPSL. I've seen him, right? I actually didn't do that well in UPSL, surprisingly, but Alex Freeman's a great player. So I do think there's issues there. The next topic I want to bring up here.
Can I just interject there really quick?
Yeah, and sorry, and if Eric needs to add something, you can go next.
No, because I think it's important to know the youth side of the game. Also, I've been involved in the youth side of the game for over 20 years and on the professional side for about 10 years. So I've lived both worlds as a practitioner, and I see the effects of having a closed ecosystem, and I've seen the benefits of having an open one. So 15, 20 years ago, before the advent, 20 plus years ago, before the advent of the US Soccer Development Academy, there was promotion relegation at the youth levels. And I got to witness what player development looked like there, what the competitions looked like there, what the intensity looked like there. The whole machine, okay? US Soccer Development Academy came around, basically usurped the top team or the top tier, which I understand when you're first getting started. Hey, make a closed tier in the beginning because you don't know who's who and what's what, but they kept it closed. And the intensity at the youth level and the quality of training, the quality of the clubs and the players started dropping off. And when MLS Next took over, and that's a whole other story there too, I see youth soccer now. It's worse than it was 20 plus years ago.
Tell everyone when MLS Next started, 2021?
They took US Soccer took advantage of a crisis, which was COVID. And you know how the saying goes, never let a good crisis go to waste. And they said, hey, we can't afford this anymore. We can't administer it anymore. It's too much of a burden on us. MLS, it's all yours. So they basically handed the entire top tier of youth soccer, in addition to pro soccer, to the single entity that is MLS. Wild.
I
Wild.
Yeah. So funny enough, I wrote an article about this years ago about this, but MLS has been at war with USL, whether they'll admit it or not, for a long time. They're two competing leagues, and you see that with MLS trying to pick off Sacramento, talks about Phoenix. Basically, their big markets are what they want to get. So there's no love lost between the two. And when I saw that as basically because at the time, LAFC, for example, had Las Vegas Lights as their development team. And so they were putting money into USL franchises. And I think they wanted to pull that out from USL to try to basically not keep subsidizing them like that, which in business is cutthroat, but business is a cutthroat place. The youth development system that you touched on, I have no defense on that. You guys both know the youth system much more than I do. I have a lot of very good friends who are coaches, Kurt Kinsey in Arizona and some other guys. And I know there's huge systemic flaws with the youth system and how kids are developed. So that's not something that I will defend. But what I will look at, you talked about there was pro relegation 20 years ago in the youth system. Now, kids in that system would have came out about 10 years ago. What were our domestic soccer exports 10 years ago? And now that the academies are there, we have more players who came up through MLS academies playing in Europe than we've ever had before. Now, is that because of MLS? I'm not going to give them the credit there, but I will say that despite all of this, we do have more and better players coming out of this. Now, it's not to defend the youth system, which I know is systemically flawed in many ways. The rights territories, for example, like the kids in Arizona only being allowed to go to the Real Salt Lake Academy, and Real Salt Lake Academy sometimes out of spite for kids saying, yeah, no, you can't go play anywhere else, but you're not going to play for us. Like, I know this exists, and this definitely needs to be fixed. And,
about youth development and all, I actually released an episode as we're recording this today, so it's been out for like a week because this episode comes out in a week after. I did like a 1 hour long episode with Tom Byer talking about youth development in the US, many of the issues, and one of the things I talked about was even an open pyramid because I had this take that was supposedly controversial. I said pay to play is not the problem. That's what I said. It's not. I said it's not the problem, right? Because what happens is this: if you have a magic wand right now and you're like, or not a magic wand. Let's say I become the president of the United States and I sign an executive order. It's illegal to charge for youth soccer. I just signed it right now. I killed pay to play, right? You know what happens to all the clubs that are pay to play? They close. They disappear. So the same free MLS academies, they'll be there. Everyone else will be dead. Dead in the sense of like the clubs, right? Not the people. And honestly, you're even in a worse situation than before without pay to play. Pay to play is not there anymore. The problem is not pay to play existing. Brazil has pay to play. Argentina has pay to play. England has pay to play. They all have it. The problem is we don't have enough free academies for a country the size of the US, right? London has like 15 free academies, a city with like 10 million people. And the whole United States of America has 28, I think, right? MLS, not all 30 have. I don't think Minnesota does. I don't know if DC does. So 28 or 29 for the whole country. When you have an open pyramid, you have more incentives to have free academies. When you have more free academies, the way to create more free academies is not a billionaire investing, it's incentives. And running a free academy doesn't require $300 million. Okay, it requires a couple million. It's not cheap if you want to have a good one, but not $300 million. When you incentivize people to create more free academies, you open competition. All of a sudden, the MLS academies, USL, whatever it is, they're competing for all that talent. On top of that, you increase the number of scouts. On top of that, you reduce the supply of the pay-to-play market. Sorry, not the supply, the demand. When you reduce the demand of something, what happens? The prices usually go down. Ultimately, it would reduce the price. And I work in that industry, right? I work in it, even in the pay-to-play one. And it would hurt the pay-to-play industry if that happened. It would hurt it. But I'm 100% for it, because that's what should be done. But anyhow, that's
hey, Filippo, the incentives should not be dictated from above. The incentive should be organic. When you open the pyramid, let's just talk youth right now, just as an illustration. When you have an open ecosystem, promotion, relegation at the youth level, the youth clubs here, all the clubs naturally have an incentive to scout like a mother effer more than they used to recruit players who are better than what they have. Maybe they have to offer free. They say, hey, Felipe, you don't have to pay for your son. We want him. Bring him on over. And I know this from direct experience. I'm not speaking from theory here. Direct experience. When I was at Barcelona, USA with my brother and Paul Walker there, which is now TFA, we started like the first free academy in the whole country. Why? Because it was open. Because if we win, we move up. That's why we started it.
So I want to ask, I want to bring up now the US Open Cup, but before we even bring it up, I want to ask Eric, because maybe this one, Eric might even stand in the same position as us. If he doesn't, then I want him to expand upon it. Were you okay with MLS not playing the Open Cup or picking which teams they want to send? What's your take on it? Because maybe yours matches ours, and then it's not even worth discussing.
Yeah, no, I stand behind what MLS said, because in my opinion, US Soccer is kind of the bad guy in this tournament. You know, you talked about the TST. It's the same amount of prize money as the US Open Cup, and US Soccer, according to their 2024 financial statements, they made $3 million on the Open Cup, which is 3 times the prize money that went to the Open Cup. And, you know, if you look before, there was nowhere to watch it on TV. Luckily, they started streaming on the website, which is a big help. But Don Garber's issue with it was not a very well-run tournament. It was not a very well-promoted tournament. It was not a very accessible tournament. And mind you, I've drove 300 miles to go watch a US Open Cup game, you know, so I'm a huge fan of the tournament. But the point of that, basically US Soccer doesn't do anything with this tournament and completely neglects it. So why do we want to play in there? Like, I totally understand where he's coming from, and I want to see this cup have the glory that it should. So how do we get there? I think the status quo of it isn't working. So how do we shake things up? And I kind of see MLS as trying to shake that up.
So before I give it to Eric, I just want to add one thing. For 20 years or so, which is essentially MLS, right, to a certain extent, they were in charge of the marketing, all of that for US Soccer and the US Open Cup. So it does feel like MLS as a whole, or they put a lot more effort into, for example, promoting the Leagues Cup, right? And it felt like even destroying the Open Cup to a certain extent was part of the goal. The Open Cup, they had also incredible stories. By the way, I agree with you. I also went to games here when Orlando won it. I went to the final. I made a whole video. I've made a vlog of the final when Orlando won it, when we beat Sacramento in the final of the Open Cup. Now,
El Farolito, man, all day. El Farolito.
El Farolito. And a lot of the UPSL teams that are here, the guys put money in because they want to get in the Open Cup, and playing MLS teams, playing even USL teams. It's a dream to some of the guys here, right? The locals. Gary, I don't really need to ask your opinion on the Open Cup. You're obviously against what MLS did. I think the overall point that I wanted to make on this one here is when you are granted a Division I sanction from US Soccer, it should come with certain responsibilities and obligations. So, Gary, to you and then to Eric, just a very quick answer, quick response to this. Should MLS not be obligated to play in the Open Cup? This is because, sure, I understand that MLS and the commissioner, they have to do what's best for MLS. I don't even disagree with that, and I think they're right. What Larry Berg was saying right there, I don't agree it from a soccer perspective, but if I'm an owner in MLS, I'm like, this guy's right. I don't even blame him for that. I don't think he's wrong. But if they want to keep the Division I sanction, doesn't it come with a few like responsibilities and obligations?
I mean, look, Filippo, you're throwing me a softball here. Okay. The US Soccer Federation, their charter as a nonprofit is to be a good steward to the entire ecosystem and to all its constituents, not just one company, MLS. So they should be looking out for everybody. And it's not that difficult to understand that if you systematically erode the US Open Cup, then you're harming the lower divisions and doing what MLS wants at the end of the day. Is they don't want to prop up the US Open Cup. You hinted at it, Filippo, when you spoke about Soccer United Marketing. Which is basically an offshoot of MLS, the owners have a stake in was the one responsible for marketing and developing the US Open Cup for decades. What did they do? They didn't do anything. They systematically eroded it. And guess, when they really started hating the Open Cup too? When there were too damn many USL teams beating MLS teams. That doesn't look good because it created a lot of narratives online about USL's quality versus MLS's quality. And hence, hey, promotion relegation is a perfectly viable thing to be doing from a sporting side of the equation. They didn't like that. I don't know if maybe you weren't paying attention, Filippo, back then because it was a while ago. Do you remember Eric Winalda's Cal FC? He got a bunch of amateurs here.
Oh yeah. But that was before
they
COVID.
Beat the Sounders. They beat the Sounders at like a public park in Van Nuys.
I remember that. Beat the Sounders. And,
Eric talks about it a lot.
And look, I don't know if it was the round of 16 or what it was, but they played the Portland Timbers at Portland Timbers and beat Portland Timbers 1-0. And subsequent years, there was some, I mean, I can't prove anything and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy guy, but there was some shady things going on against Eric Winalda's teams from that point forward. Yeah. But look, it wasn't a good look for MLS when you had these sorts of games happening. So I don't blame them. They want to protect their perception. They don't like the US Open Cup. It's not rocket science here. So when US Soccer dissolved the relationship with some, and now US Soccer in the past, whatever it is, you probably know, Eric, the past 6 years, 7 years is when US Soccer finally, it's probably 6 or 7 years ago when US Soccer finally took it over again and they're responsible. It seemed like systematically they started growing it a little bit, but that's when MLS decided to pull out.
Eric, so I'm going to ask you this. Do you think MLS, again, you said it, MLS doing what they need to do for MLS, that's great. Do you think MLS pulling out of the Open Cup should be allowed by the Federation? And if so, do you think it hurts soccer in America, MLS not playing the Open Cup? I think it does. That's the top division. So I think it does hurt.
I think forcing teams to play in a tournament is kind of ridiculous. Number one, there is a Champions League slot at the top of this. If no MLS teams participated, they would be handing USL basically a CONCACAF Champions Cup slot. So I think if their intention was to really hurt the other teams, I think they would have to try to get them to pull that slot from, which I would never really see happening. I think it would remain there. Again, we go to the prize money. To win the Open Cup, you get $650,000. If you have second place, it's $250,000. Or sorry, 300,000, and then there's $10,000 to the top finishing third division and the top finishing fourth division team. And if you're the MLS and you got to take your whole team up, you got to fly them somewhere, you got to put them up in hotels, and you have to do this over and over, or your home games, because of how poorly it's promoted. And I would go to all of them. Our stadium would be closed. Like over half of it would be closed. They'd have like a third of the stadium open for seats, and that's it. And the seats would be like $20. And so every MLS team has taken a big wash on this tournament. I think that obviously some they marketed. I think that was a really horrible idea to begin with. I would wonder if US Soccer pawned it off to MLS because they didn't want to deal with it at all anyways, and they couldn't get any other marketing to do it.
That was, let me correct that. That was part of a deal from like the World Cup media rights in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. Some took over. Some was in charge of the marketing of US Soccer for like 20 years. So it wasn't specifically just US Open Cup. It was the USMNT friendlies. It was everything. Open Cup was part of the package, obviously.
Well, I don't seem to remember the U.S. men's national team not being marketed sufficiently. So why some would do that and not the other? I mean, maybe it's because they just hate US Open Cup, as it could be said, but I don't really buy that because I don't see what's in that for MLS. MLS basically loses money on this tournament, and they don't want to lose money in this tournament. And I think the prize should be increased to fix that. If they don't want to participate, then make the tournament worth participating in. Obviously, you have the Champions Cup slot. That should be worth it for somebody. But, I don't believe in forcing them to play in a tournament.
See, hold on, Filippo, real quick.
Let me give you one stat, Gary.
Real quick.
Gary, the prize money of the Copa del Rey is 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Which is very low.
Very low. Who cares?
Yeah, and the FA Cup is like 12 or 13 million.
No, but I'm giving you like Barcelona and Real Madrid go there to win it, not for the money, right? But anyhow, go Gary.
No, but we don't even have to look at England or Spain. You can look at the other 150 plus countries in the world. They all have their domestic cups, and the professional teams, the first division teams, play in the domestic cups. Okay, you know what really troubles me with these sorts of things all the time is, why are we always looking out for the best interest of billionaire owners and MLS? Why are all the arguments always looking out for them? Why are we not starting to have conversations about what is best for everything outside of MLS, which is 99% of everybody else? Why do we always center these discussions about, well, the billionaires of MLS will never go for that, or well, the billionaires in MLS won't like the prize money at US Open Cup? Why are we talking about that? The federation, who is supposed to be looking out for everybody else also, yes, okay, MLS, it's only 300K or 400K or what? Who gives a F? You need to participate here for the sake of the entire ecosystem.
I mean, it's easy to spend other people's money, and that's, hey, MLS,
No,
you got to
but
pay this.
but
it's
why
about
are you?
Sustainability, and it's like, again, if do you think the Open Cup as it is with the prize package as it is an acceptable product? Do you believe that, Gary?
Hey, what's the prize money for MLS Cup?
I want to say it's something like 2 or 3 million. I
No.
don't have that one.
It's 300K. It's less than US
that's
Open
right,
Cup.
That's right. Yeah,
it's $300,000 for the champion of MLS Cup.
Sure, but here's the other thing: if you go to buy tickets for the MLS Cup, those babies are expensive, and they pack the stadiums, and that's part of the season. The whole regular season is the MLS. It's our season the league doesn't end at the last day of the season. It ends at the end of the playoffs. So
right.
It's really just part of the deal.
So it's not the money at the end of the rainbow, right? That is the driver here.
Because, well, that's also MLS. That's also MLS's thing. U.S. Open Cup is U.S. Soccer, and as I said,
everybody else can F off. Everybody else can F off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, if I own business A, why do I want business B telling me what to do and telling me that I have to spend money on their thing that I don't get much back from?
Correct. So this is why you need good regulation. This is why you need good governance.
That sounds like central planning to me.
Can I add one thing to this, just to try to, maybe to the viewers, to explain to them one thing? I think the argument here for both sides is not being clear with one little thing. There's a difference between you being obligated to play somewhere. Like, for example, no MLS team should be obligated to play in the TST. Okay, that should not be a rule, right? You can't force them to do so. But I think when you get a Division I sanction, and for example, due to that reason, MLS has CONCACAF Champions Cup spots in their league, while USL doesn't, right? USL doesn't, MLS does. They have a Division I sanction and a few other benefits that come with it. When you get that from the federation, you should be obligated to play in the domestic cup, because that does benefit soccer in this country. Now, if you come to me and say MLS teams should play only their backups in the Open Cup, that's their problem. They can do that. A lot of the big teams in England in the early rounds play their backups, and then you see like the cup sets, right? You see that happen. I don't care if MLS goes and just says, we're going to play our backups in the US Open Cup. They're allowed to do that. As long as the player's in their roster, they can do that. But I do think they have the obligation, due to the Division I sanction that's been granted to them, to play in the Open Cup, right? Because we can talk about all we want about MLS bringing money to soccer in the United States, blah, blah, blah. MLS also was, to a certain extent, subsidized and helped by the U.S. Soccer Federation. They do have a responsibility with soccer in this country. So sure, they do have to look first towards their business, right? But then the U.S. Soccer Federation is the one that has to come in. It's like, hey, profits here. You do have a few responsibilities there. You want to do the Leagues Cup? Do the Leagues Cup. Because the main argument from Don Garber was a congested schedule. We know that's not the reason, right? That's not the real reason. He could have just come out and say, right, we make more money with the Leagues Cup thanks to the Mexican teams than we do with the Open Cup. But I think they should be obligated to play in it. And my biggest concern with this is, like, it feels like MLS has almost more power than the one governing it, right? The soccer in this country. That's my biggest concern with it. I agree with you. We shouldn't force MLS to play in non-sanctioned tournaments, for example, like the TST or anything else. But in this situation, it's kind of hard, right? And MLS can do it. Play your subs. Just play your subs or lose the Division I sanction, right? Let me ask you guys, I don't know Eric, do you want to add anything here? Because I don't want to shut you guys down.
Yeah,
Anyone want to
yeah.
add something?
I've said it before, but and I know with the TST, they're so good at marketing that tournament. It is such a fun tournament that I would love to see them give whoever's marketing the soccer tournament 7v7, give them the US Open Cup marketing, because they obviously know how to promote a tournament. And like that's all I think. It's like
Some
I
knows how to
love
promote tournaments. Come on, don't discredit some. You know who's actually promoting the TFC this year?
Oh,
US Soccer.
no, who
US Soccer.
are they? See, that just blows my mind right
They
there,
just
man.
did you know that, Gary? US Soccer took over.
No,
Yeah.
but isn't TST held at a common ground and only during a very short time
It's
window?
a festival. It's a festival, yeah.
So it's a very different product. It's a very different thing than a distributed, spread over months domestic cup, geographically speaking also.
Well, also the TST is not sanctioned by US Soccer. It's its own league. It can make up rules. It doesn't abide by like the FIFA rules, the FIFA standards. It's whatever. Like they made up the target score. It's just they change it every year. So it's amateur, right? Even though players get paid and there's a lot of money in it, but it's considered amateur. Let me ask you guys one thing. We talked a lot about regulation. We talked about money, investment, asset prices going up, merit based, open pyramid, everything. Do you guys think promotion relegation would also have any impact with the product on the field and pressure? Right. The reason I asked that is because I want to pull this tweet, and this might be the last topic we talk about, unless you guys want to address something else. This was Greg Berhalter talking, my favorite coach, Greg Berhalter. You guys know I love this guy very much right here. People complain about not having promotion relegation. There's still that pressure if you're not performing. You're not going to be around. That was Greg Berhalter talking about. And then he talked about how Nico Estevez got fired from Austin, and he's never not made the playoffs. So he's using the fact that coaches get fired. So there's pressure. And of course, there's pressure to perform to a certain extent in MLS. There's pressure in the NBA. The further you go, the better you do, the more money you make. But let me start with Eric here, because I know you are married to a Brazilian woman, correct? Yes, you're married to a
Correct.
Brazilian. You're married to a Brazilian. So you've been exposed to the Brazilian culture quite a bit. From what you told me, you even been to games there.
Oh yeah, first and
So
second division.
when it comes to there you go. That's a fun one right there. Do you think that promotion relegation, when it comes to the product on the field, it improves it or it damages the product on the field due to pressure and actually real life consequences for a team being shit?
I think around the world it does. I think for here it doesn't, because our sports culture is substantially different. We tend to burn down cities when we win, not when we lose, and so I think also at the end of the day, everybody's playing for their jobs. And so, even if, NFL, which I'm a huge fan of, if a team's not making the playoffs and they've been eliminated with 2 weeks to go, those guys are not playing any less hard because they know they're playing for their jobs the next season. It's funny to hear your state from Greg Berhalter, who, if there's a guy that should have probably been fired long before and had way more pressure on his job, it was him, but he didn't, so that's also, I think, an interesting quote to come from him. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of this is just different culturally, and part of it, my wife, she had pretty much stopped being into soccer in Brazil because she was at a game when she was 12 years old where she saw people who were beaten to death at the game between fans, and that basically turned her completely off to soccer. And I took her on an early date to go see LAFC, and this would have been in 2018. And as we're getting up there, she's like, "Can I hold your hand?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." She was expecting to see the lines of the police horses and the riot police. She gets there, and it's kids playing soccer in the park. It's people barbecuing and tailgating. And this is kind of who we are as sports. Sports are not a life and death to us in this country. And I think soccer will never really be a life or death, or should it be? So this thing with pressure, like you need players showing up at somebody's house at 2 a.m. and dragging them out for having a bad game, or lighting stuff on fire, which was a big tweet going around today. I don't think there's any more pressure because of relegation at all. I think they're professionals and they always have a large amount of pressure.
I just want to add one thing. I'm also not for the pressure of beating someone up on the street because they didn't
Of
perform,
course.
or going at the guy in the while he's with his family in the restaurant. None of that. When I talk about pressure, it's mainly that the one thing that MLS protects is stability, right? But when you are getting relegated, there's going to be salary cuts. There's going to be people in the club that lose their jobs. There's consequences to it. The same way when one club gets promoted, there's more money coming into one, the other one loses, another one wins. That's what I'm talking about in terms of pressure, because there was an interview from Yedlin a few years back, right? 2021 or something, where he talked about that, how the intensity in the European leagues with promotion relegation is just different. I've interviewed Jeff Cameron, talked about this, I think, on my channel as well. Jeff Cameron, that played in Major League Soccer, also played in England for many, many years. Jeff Cameron. That's why I asked that. And as an Orlando City guy, even though these days I've grown kind of tired of this franchise, me and Eric were even talking about this before the episode started. It's like, honestly, the way, like, for example, I look at Orlando City right now, they're not going to win MLS Cup, right? So the only thing I could root for is like try to make the playoffs and yoo-hoo, let's have fun. And then you're going to say, well, in other leagues you only have 2 or 3 teams competing. Yeah, but you have the battle for the secondary continental competition, the primary continental competition, relegation battle. There are dead zones in every league for sure, right? There are those like 3 to 4 teams that are just like, what the hell are they doing here right now? They can't fight for anything. But Orlando City's like, they're not, right? They're fighting for a playoff spot. But how much should I care besides player development, like a prospect like Justin Ellis or something? As for you, Gary, this might also be a softball question, but
okay. Well, can I jump in on that real quick?
Yeah, this is yours now, and Eric can jump in if he needs to.
No, because there's been countless stories, right, from players who have played on both sides of the pond or down south or whatever, who have made the same sort of statements. It's not just the recent tweet. Where was the guy from today that made the tweet about in South America? Is he Paraguayan? I already forget.
Yeah, I think he's Paraguayan.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, there's been countless Americans too. The latest one is Sebastian Berhalter, who kind of said the same thing, that there's more pressure over there than there is over here. But irrespective of that, what was the other thing you mentioned? Shoot, I lost my train of thought here.
Me or Eric?
You just finished up with something. Dang it.
Well, I talked about Jeff Cameron talking about pressure overseas. I talked about how when you get promoted, there's salary cuts, people lose their jobs, but at the same time, one's getting demoted.
Right. So 2 more points. Yeah. So 2 more points. I think there is a very distinct, self-evident change in how players play and teams play in MLS during the regular season versus when it's in the playoffs. I think it's very self-evident, the intensity that exists, which is, I don't know, quite telling as to what kind of pressure there is and how much of themselves are they giving during a regular season match. Because if you look overseas, and again, I've worked in the space intimately for the better part of a decade at the professional level and overseas as well. I've had players overseas. Every single weekend is MLS playoffs. Every single weekend over there during the regular season. So the intensity and the pressure is just distinctly different, guys. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to go on about the whole thing. Oh, well, it's always Bayern Munich that wins, or PSG, or in the Premier League, it's only the top 4. So what? Guys, why did we tune into the U.S. men's national team in the millions here? Why are we so excited when the U.S. men's national team plays the World Cup or Copa America or something? You're not going to win, but you still tune in, don't you? So there's something else in play there.
Well, community, right? Personal connection, usually, right?
Correct.
Like I know the U.S. is not winning the World Cup, but I like to have that little delusion. I just want to root for them regardless of what happens. I want to even.
But the point, Filippo, the point is that if you're a team in Portugal, I don't know, whatever you want to call it,
Rio Ave,
Casa Pia, whatever. Okay, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. But yet, they have a club, and the community is tight knit, and they're all about it.
No, and I'm sure Eric knows this because he talked to me prior. He's he's also a Ponte Preta fan in Brazil, so he understands this. But sure.
People are going to say it's a cultural thing. Well, guess what? The culture here is not allowed to exist and allowed to flourish. The culture here, the general sports culture, is just, it's just an entertainment product. I'm going to take the family out here instead of going to the movies. I'm going to have some nachos and hot dogs and a beer. And it's just a night out. It has nothing to do with football. They don't feel it the same way they feel it because there's nothing at stake. It doesn't matter. It's going to the movies.
Eric?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about growing the game in the United States, and the United States sports consumer is different than the European one or the South American one. And again, I think the pressure is really it's cultural. It's not
true,
the game
man.
the game is just not big enough here for people to get so bent out of shape about it like they do there. It's everything there in Brazil. The tabloid culture, even in Mexico, like the soccer tabloids are insane. Like we just don't care about it that much here. All of our sports, whether it's NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, basketball, everything picks up in the playoffs because that's just how our sports are. Everybody plays a regular season to get to the playoffs, but then when you get to the playoffs, then the real season starts. And getting up to that is a matter of getting your seeding, which in MLS with the 3 tournament is horrible. But before that, the seeding had a huge impact on whether you could make it or not. The last thing with these teams, you talked about the small teams in Portugal. Now, the other thing is all of these leagues with pro relegation have a sports club history, which is very much like our college sports, where these were athletic clubs that started as private clubs back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And part of the sports they played, which were multiple sports, they would do swimming, they would do soccer, they would do all kinds of things. They had to create a way to basically regulate them and make sure the bigger sports clubs played the bigger sports clubs and the smaller ones played the smaller ones. And that's how this whole system began, as a parity mechanism. And so when you have somebody at a small club in Portugal, well, their parents cheered for that club, their grandparents cheered for their club, their great grandpa might have played for that club in the 1930s. And so they have this tie to it that is so much deeper than what anybody here has. If you look at Major League Baseball, which has a huge unbalanced problem with the big teams, the more you see 2 or 3 teams win it, the lower Major League Baseball. It's their support has been falling because they have super teams. The NBA was doing the same thing for a while.
Even though in baseball you have parents and grandparents and great grandparents who supported their baseball team. So why has it not persisted?
So, well, I mean, look at where I grew up, the Minnesota Twins, their support is half of what it was when I was growing up back in the day because, sit 91, they just get outspent. They get good players. They get bought up. There's no future cheering for that team. So people are like, why do I want to cheer for a team when they have zero chance of ever winning, And, the only thing people really point to is like Leicester City and their miracle run. But that's hardly ever happens. And that's just one team out of probably, how many teams that have zero chance ever. So if we're growing the game, people are going to have a hard time cheering for a brand new team that they didn't know that has no chance of winning. I think it will hurt growing the game here.
You know what would happen? Who's in last place now for baseball or American throw ball or basketball, you name it, or Major League Baseball?
They're off season in basketball.
If it was the Minnesota Twins, right, who were threatened with relegation, you know how crazy shit would get? If it was the LA Lakers in the last season of Kobe Bryant, when Kobe Bryant was clearly over, he was done, basically, he wouldn't be trotted out there for entertainment reasons because they were coming in last place.
Hey, man, he dropped 80 points in the last game.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, because I'm sure they played hard defense for sure. But no disrespect to Kobe, okay? No disrespect. I love that guy. But could you imagine the insane atmosphere that exists if NBA teams are being threatened with relegation and what kind of intensity, emotional swings that generates in the fan base when you survive or when you go down and then you come back up? That is what builds longevity. What doesn't build longevity is just chilling here as a Detroit Lions fan, and who gives a shit?
I mean, let's look at basketball. Basketball in Europe, which is done by, there's a lot of the same teams that have soccer teams doing it. Don't the European basketball leagues have promotion relegation?
Yeah.
Has that made their sport more competitive?
Of course, absolutely.
I need to.
Let me get into this one because yes, they have drastically improved in basketball over the years. The last 7 MVPs are not American, right? The US is still number 1. There's no doubt. This is also the sport we professionalize this sport. It's our sport, right? And the US is number 1, but you are seeing players like the Greek Freak, Jokic, Embiid that moved to the US when he was what? Embiid played here in Florida, right? I think he did. I don't know. But Embiid was like 15 or something. So players from other leagues are coming through, and we had Dirk Nowitzki a few years back, like a decade or so again. So yeah, promotion relegation is definitely playing a role. Well, maybe not promotion relegation, but their overall development is improving in basketball quite a bit.
I would be interested to know if basketball is more popular in Europe than soccer is here in the United States.
Depends on the country, right? Depends on the
Yeah.
country. In Europe as a whole, no. Specific countries, perhaps close. Well, I think actually very close because soccer is so big within European, South American culture that there's a bigger gap between soccer and number two than like I guess any other sport here in soccer because the gap is much bigger. But soccer is also not that small in the United States, and we kind of
It's
got a
not
feel for that
small.
in the World Cup. We had the most watched sporting event outside of like the Super Bowl, and also we had the thing that I talk about here as well is when we talk about like people or soccer fans, they watch specific clubs and leagues for two reasons, right? There's two reasons. One is entertainment, and usually when it's entertainment, the main focus is quality, right? And Eric, just the the mute, so they watch it for two reasons, right? Entertainment, which usually comes down to quality or something at stake, like a playoff game, Champions League, Premier League. The second thing they do is personal connection, right? Personal connection, which can be a local club, a player that you follow, whatever it is. And most of these countries, because you don't need to have the top quality and richest league in the world to get viewers. Because if that was the case, good luck to everyone else that's competing with Saudi Arabia, right? With how much money they're investing in it. So it's personal connection and quality. So that's why the Premier League thrives here in the US, mainly because of quality. And then the other league that thrives in the US is the Mexican League. That's not even here. The Mexican League is just personal connection. That's all it is. Because I'm not going to lie to you, Liga MX, MLS, to me, the level, when I'm watching it, there's not much of a difference, in my opinion. There's not much of a difference. I know Mexico fans are going to come here. It's like, no, Liga MX is much better than MLS. I disagree. I think the level is here. It's the same. Maybe the top Mexican teams are better, like the top two. But outside of that, it's the same freaking level, those two leagues.
Well, funny enough, when you were saying you didn't know if the most popular team in Orlando was Orlando, I think Gary would agree with me on this one. The most popular team in Los Angeles is Club America. Like, it's not Galaxy,
and
it's
Chivas,
not
right?
LAFC.
And Chivas.
Yeah, but Club America is bigger. I mean, that's honestly probably the biggest team in North America.
Yeah. So there you go. And that's only due to personal connection. I don't care what people say about quality. MLS and Liga MX, same level. That doesn't really matter. Of course, I watched the Premier League. The quality there is much better. You can clearly see.
Filippo, was Liga MX better 6, 7, 10 years ago than MLS?
10 years for sure. 10 years ago. 6 years ago, I kind of feel like it was already same shit. But then again, when people are going to say, oh, but we keep winning the Conca Champions. Yeah, because the top two Mexican teams, usually they're better. But the overall league is the same level, the overall league. I feel like if you put MLS teams in Liga MX, none of them are going to get embarrassed, even the worst ones. It's going to be there, right?
No, I bring it up, Filippo, too, because I think the audience, it's important to note what's happened recently, right? In 2020, Mexico suspended promotion relegation. And if you look at the data, there's good data on this. The attendance of the second division started going down. The player valuations of the second division players started going down. The investment in the second division started going down by the owners. Everything in the second division started becoming more and more crippled when they got rid of promotion relegation. And there is now no longer an incentive for those second division owners to pump capital and money and invest and build because they can't get promoted anymore. And did you see the news that during these past two fixtures, the second division teams, when they're playing, the players got all together to take pictures before the game in solidarity and as a complaint, right, to the federation for getting rid of promotion relegation. Their salaries have gone down after they suspended promotion relegation in 2020. So this is a nice little case study, and we'll see how it develops over the coming years. Also, a nice case study of what was the health of the lower divisions in Mexico pre and post 2020.
Okay, I guess Mexico would be a good test for that then. And if they get worse, that's their problem, not our problem.
But not to mention the quality of the first division also, because hey, maybe correlation doesn't equal causation. I admit that, but it seems like MLS was having a lot more success with the Mexican clubs the past 6 years.
So,
Well,
Eric,
I will point out that the MLS revenue was 2.5 billion last year, and in 2015, 10 years ago, it was 510 million. So the revenue has went up 5 times. And if I don't have the roster spends, but I'm sure the roster spends have probably went up at least 2 to 4 times since then also.
Well, of course that's going to happen, right? Of course that's
yeah.
I mean,
But I guess the main question is, even when you're spending more money right there, one could argue that the Mexican league kind of regressed, I would say, in terms of quality.
100%.
Because they
Disaster.
used to be teams. And Eric, I know you follow Brazilian soccer actually, but I don't know when you started to follow it exactly, right? Might have been a bit. When did you start following it?
Around 2019, 2018.
Okay, so you didn't catch the era where Mexico played in the Libertadores, and their teams were very competitive there. I don't think MLS and Mexican teams, especially playing away in the Libertadores, I don't think they would be very competitive right now. And I watch both quite a bit. Would they get out of the group? Of course, right? Like, there are worse teams in South America, but I don't think they would be competitive. Like we've seen, was it against River Plate that they had that final versus Tigres, and it was a little sketchy? Like Conmebol was kind of helping Argentina a little bit right there. Was it River Plate?
You and your conspiracies against Argentina, man.
Look, guys, we've had a very long debate here, discussion.
Yeah.
The viewers of this video can draw their own conclusions. There were many good points made for both sides. You guys were wonderful. But before we go, I would like for y'all to have a closing statement, right? Who wants to go first? Just raise your hand, like school right now.
Eric is going to go first because I went first in the opener.
All right. So, Eric, a closing statement. It doesn't even have to be a topic. You can even just say bye to everyone. It's just if you want to add something, and then we'll end it right here. Oh, just one rule for both of you. Well, more specifically to Gary. Whatever Eric says now, you can't counter, okay? Because it's no longer debate. Just a closing statement. All right. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I'm going to try to bring this back. I think, I have a feeling that no matter what side of the coin you fell on this, I think you're probably still going to be on your same side of the coin. But hopefully through this, we can kind of understand where the other side is coming from. And on that line as well, I think it's great to support local soccer, whether it's the first division, which is only MLS, but maybe in 2028, USL Premier will launch as it's planned, or it's second division USL, or it's third division, or it's fourth MPSL or SPSL, depending where you are. Going out and supporting live soccer supports people at all kinds of levels to play this game. And I think using an open or closed pyramid to not go down, whether it's a third division and you're paying $15, or whether it's an MLS game and you can go see it for $40, as opposed to like an NFL game where you're paying $500, that you go out there and support local soccer. Because at the end of the day, this is how more of our domestic players develop, is if more people are going out and buying tickets and watching these games and supporting the ecosystem. So if you're really, really dead set on the open pyramid pro rel, at the very least, please don't use that as an excuse to not go watch live soccer somewhere.
Gary, your closing statement?
No, that's I kind of reflect Eric's statement there. That's a good statement to kind of end on. Everybody should support where they're currently at as much as possible. I'm just hoping that folks systematically over the course of time learn more and more about the difficulties that exist when you have one single entity, one company controlling the first division of American soccer, and now also controlling the first tier of youth soccer, and what that does to everybody outside of that one single company. It's not great. And I would encourage everybody to, I don't know, if you can, pick up a free market economics book or something, because that certainly has helped me a lot.
All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, make sure to go follow Gary. Make sure to go follow Eric. I'm going to put their handles in the description of this video, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, whatever they want me to add. All right. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Peace.